Welcome to the Wisdom of Women show. Business is the most powerful, innovative force in the world. And with visionary women leaders at the helm, we can lead in both impact and profit. Today's world needs the wisdom of women in business. This is why we are here to help women grow. Are you already a successful visionary woman founder leading a high impact company? The Wisdom of Women show is designed just for you. We are a community of women founders, investors, and leaders who want to see you rise. Join us as we unlock opportunities and prosperity for women-led enterprises. The future of business is women. Are you ready? Welcome to the Wisdom of Women show. We are dedicated to amplifying the voice of women in business. A new model of leadership is emerging, and we are here to amplify the voices of women leading the way. Thank you so much for joining us today as we illuminate the path to unlocking opportunities and prosperity for women-led enterprises by amplifying the voice and wisdom of women. So on our show today, we're thrilled to welcome the phenomenal Fran Maier. Fran is a powerhouse serial entrepreneur, investor, fundraiser with a knack for launching and scaling transformative ventures like Match.com and TrustE, now TrustArc, and currently as the founder and CEO of BabyQuip, Fran has expanded the leading global baby gear rental marketplace to over 2,000 markets worldwide. Her vision and leadership have not only built trusted brands, but also have empowered thousands of gig economy entrepreneurs. We're going to totally unpack that. And Fran's expertise spans change management, business expansion, brand development, and international outreach. She's a dedicated board member for organizations like GE Capital Bank and Girls in Tech, an advisor to several startups championing female founders and Latinx leadership, a thought leader featured in Forbes, CNBC, and ABC's Shark Tank. Frank is also a sought-after keynote speaker and media personality. So she's a proud mother, passionate about making the world better for women-led enterprises. So join us in welcoming Fran. Thank you for being here.
Coco, thank you so much.
Oh, it's a pleasure. So it's such a pleasure to be with you. So as we get started, it's important for y'all to know that Fran and I had this wonderful adventure together. We went to Cuba in April with Julie Castro Abrams and the How Women Lead group, and we had a wonderful time getting to know each other in that environment. And I just had to have Fran come and share her wisdom with all of us.
That was so much fun.
It really was.
Much good art. Oh my God.
The art was spectacular, right?
Yeah.
We both came home with a few pieces.
Yes.
So I always like to start out with our question of what is a book written by a woman that has significantly influenced your life?
So I'm almost embarrassed to say it, but I was always a big Gone with the Wind fan. And it's not obviously because of any glorification of the South, pre or post the Civil War, nothing like that. It had to do with the spunk and energy and resilience of Scarlett O'Hara.
I love that. And it's true, right? She really always just hung in there, and I'll think about that tomorrow, right? Like whatever it was.
Right. She just solved the problem. Ultimately she took care of her family and her loved ones, but it wasn't easy.
Yeah.
And I always admired that. And it's funny when you said that, think about tomorrow, because one of my pieces of advice to female founders really ties in, which is basically don't solve tomorrow's problem today. you
Don't
know?
solve tomorrow's, yes, because there's too many problems, right? You have
There's
to
too many,
focus,
there's too
right?
many problems, and I think women, maybe men, but women especially, we get overwhelmed with thinking about all the stuff that might have to happen in the future. And if you start to get overwhelmed when you're a startup founder about things you don't have to solve today, you're just going to get drowned.
Yes, I completely agree because there's too many challenges and there's too many complexities. Like you just have to wake up and what's today? What problem do I need to solve? And through everything else, I'll think about that tomorrow.
Think about that tomorrow. So that actually fits in. The other book I was going to mention is The Handmaid's Tale by
Oh,
Margaret Atwood. Not so much a business book, but certainly a book that I think, and the series too, really is scary about women and women's rights.
truly.
And
And I would agree with you, Handmaid's Tale. I mean, it's such a beautiful book. If anyone hasn't read it, it's you
it's a
know,
warning,
yeah, it's a dystopian possibility if we're not in charge of our own bodies and our minds and our destinies.
right? Right, absolutely.
So tell us now about, so you've had these extraordinary experiences and I've spent time with you, like we've had dinners together and you're just you don't tell people a lot of details about these things. You're pretty you've got a ton of humility about you and but I wonder if you would just really share with us your journey and um you've had some interesting places that you've been in the past and companies you've been a part of. Tell us a little bit about Match and about how that experience and how it paved the way for you to move on and do. I think you've done 4 or 5 ventures along the way and then TrustE and
Yeah.
now that's TrustArc. So just tell us a little bit about your journey and how that's flowed for you.
Yeah, it's so funny because when you grow up, you don't know what you're going to grow up and become, And I grew up in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and that's where I'm coming to you now. My dad was in insurance and financial services, and he'd drive me to school and tell me about this or that, and really was encouraging me to learn math and to do well in school and that kind of thing. And I think as a salesman, he would often share, his art of the deal, right? So that kind of thing. So um, left Santa Fe to go to Stanford in 1980 and thought I had died and gone to heaven, you know, and really initially pursued being an English major. But before you know it, I was taking economics classes and some computer science and stats and organizational theory and just stuff. And it added up to a degree in public policy. Who knew? But that's what I graduated with. And I went and did some consulting, and then I went back to Stanford Business School. And at that point, really thought that my calling was marketing. I like the whole idea of brand management, of owning the product from not just how it's advertised and promoted, but what's the packaging? What are the incentives for the salespeople? What are the key selling points? And I had a lot of fun doing that. I was at the Clorox company after business school, and that was kind of a postgraduate degree in marketing. And
Totally.
it was really, really great experience. And still friends with many people from business school and also Clorox. And in 1993, I was in a division of Clorox that was sold, and I was 7 months pregnant and lost my job. Can you
Oh,
believe it? And yeah,
it's
my
crazy.
ex-husband.
They're not supposed to fire people that are not let go people.
So I guess that was the thing. And I ended up going to Northern California's AAA club, the Automobile Club.
Uh-huh.
And that turned out to be a pretty good experience because that was more about membership and direct mail and
Uh-huh.
that kind of marketing.
Uh-huh.
So when I went to my business school reunion in 1994, I connected with this guy, Gary Kremen, And Gary's vision, he had bought all these URLs for all kinds of things. And his company was going to be called Electric Classifieds. And the idea was to get classified advertising onto the internet from newspapers, except for one segment, the persons, the dating. And he asked me if I was interested in maybe leading up what was going to become Match.com. And I had two small children. I'm in San Francisco. While I was at AAA, I saw AOL and I saw the internet for the first time. We called it the World Wide Web then.
Yeah, I remember.
And of course, it was all dial-up and was slow. But I
Yes.
looked at it and I knew this is going to change everything.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt about it.
Mm-hmm.
Can we pause? I have
Absolutely. Sure.
Anyway, so Gary asked me if I was interested in leading up Match.com, in part because he wanted somebody with a deep marketing expertise.
Yeah.
So in part, he had hit on the strategy, which I also, agreed with, that we were going to make this attractive to women. And by making an online, what we called it then was online personals, attracted to women, we would get the men, and that would be our strategy for winning. And boy, I still had to convince Gary. I went down to the basement offices off South Park in San Francisco, and around South Park was Wired magazine and all these other new startups. And one day I bought pizza, another day I bought Chinese food, hung out with the guys, eventually got the job, then had to convince my husband that it was worthwhile to do this. That was, And so I joined up in December of '94. We launched Match in May of 1995. I can tell you it took off pretty fast. We didn't
And not
even
everything does, right? I mean, like
be at it. But I think in a lot of ways, like BabyQuip, but we'll get to that later, there was really a pent-up demand for alternatives, to dating and going to bars and randomly meeting people. Just really kind of wasn't working. And almost from the beginning, we saw that people were very interested in long-term relationships, not just hookups. I remember our first questions. Now, let me set the stage for you. Most people were dialing up, so we couldn't have a whole lot of graphics. In the mid-90s, people didn't have digital cameras, so it took probably another year before we started scanning in photos that people would take to us. So a lot of our questions were about how you looked, okay? And we launched with only 5 or 6 questions. And one question we didn't ask, and this is, I take credit for this, is we didn't ask how much you weigh.
right? It's just
Because
not appropriate,
we
right?
were trying to get women didn't want to answer that question, so we did body type,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and that was some of the ways that, our 3 brand words were safe, anonymous, and fun. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Safety being a very big deal on the internet, and not anonymity was more important then than it is now, it appears.
Yes. Yes.
But of course, fun, like let's have some fun with this. We were very early to talk about dating safety, and I think from the very beginning led the way. We got press in 1995 around Valentine's Day, and for the next, so before you know it, we were global. We spent money very carefully. I had to know that all my advertising dollars paid out. Can you imagine? For a social network? But how did we know? We didn't even know. We were doing viral marketing. We were doing affiliate marketing, making partnerships. We were doing, we were a social network. We were a marketplace. But do you think we used any of those phrases?
No, of course not, because it didn't exist.
We're so early.
Yeah.
And I think another thing that was critical to our success that I drove was a membership business model. And again, remember, I had been at AAA. I knew the power of membership. I also knew again, women would be more attracted to that than the alternative, which would be charging per contact. Or,
Right.
I mean, it just seems sleazy, right?
Right. Totally.
Once we turned on pricing, our percentage of women went up to over 20%, which is really, really good. And in fact, it validated the guys. So
Oh.
we were growing. Now, Gary got kicked out. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
None of the board members wanted a match because they thought it could be sleazy, because
Mm-hmm.
the number of personals were sleazy.
Mm-hmm.
So they decided to sell match in 1998. Okay. And we sold it for less than $8 million.
Oh my goodness.
And
Can you?
I got a couple $100,000. I'm not saying that was a lot of money, but we all know match is worth billions. And this was probably the hardest lesson I ever learned. And it was, honestly, Coco, had I been a guy, I think somebody would have said, why don't you raise the money and take it to the next level? And within a year, Match was sold again for $70 million. Okay. I could have done that, but I didn't have the confidence. I didn't ask for help. I think had I talked to people I knew at Stanford Business School or whatever, somebody would have said, why don't you take it? I certainly
Yes.
knew more about it than anybody else. I had driven all the branding, all the partnerships, the product development and everything else. But I was kind of worn down. I had two small children at home. I didn't really have a supportive spouse. And, it's not all his fault. We were in new territory. And I let it go. And
Oh my God. I think this is such an important story for women to hear, honestly, because it's so honest and it's so real. And it's I'll tell you, Fran, my own experience as a founder, I'm going through an exit right now, and I can say it because it's by the time this comes out, it'll be public. But there came a moment when I needed more cash. I either needed scale or I needed more cash. And we decided that we were going to scale. And so I had to go get money to do that. And I only knew that was an option because I had a husband that's in finance, and that's what I watch him do all day long. But I will tell you that I felt for probably 2 years after that like a failure because I needed money from somebody else to do it. And I like no man would feel that way,
yeah, I mean, we could be our
right?
own worst enemies. And
Right? Do you know what I'm saying, Fran? Like I needed help, so therefore it wasn't my success.
And maybe we're not used to asking for help, or maybe asking
Yes.
for certain things, but not in others. The
Yeah.
good news is 10 years later, I was running TrustE before
Yeah.
it was.
Tell us what is trustee? Tell
So
everybody what trustee do.
at the time was a certification for privacy policies.
Yeah.
When I joined that in 2001, I had been at women.com, which right before that, which IPO'd in late 99, but then we're in the dot-com bust.
Mhm.
Prior to that, and then I was at bluelight.com, which was sort of Kmart and Martha Stewart and Yahoo. That also got impacted by the dot-com bust. So I joined this industry association nonprofit called TrustE, mostly because it was a job. I was CEO this time, or executive director. And I believed, my superpower, the thing I think I do really well is build trusted brands, which is a little bit repetitive because brands are trust. In any case, I thought I'd be there 2 years, and it turned out I was there over 10. And this time I recognized, after being there for just a few years, that privacy and data, all the issues were exploding.
Yeah.
While I was there, we did things about spam and spyware, but you could see mobile and social, and we probably couldn't even see AI. But you knew all these things were coming down the pike.
Mhm.
And as an industry association, We just didn't have the capital to address the issues.
Yeah.
And I knew that we were going to be basically irrelevant if we did not scale and meet the needs of the market. And I spoke to some of our larger clients, which were big companies, and they all supported it. But I had a board of nonprofit lawyers from big companies, all men except for one. And this time I kind of laid it out that if I couldn't pursue raising money and transitioning the company to a for-profit, then I would have to leave. And, at that point, I had also worked with them in the strategic planning process. Yes, these are the opportunities and we can't do them. They very reluctantly and not with a lot of support said, okay, go ahead and try and raise some money. They didn't think I'd do it. And in the end, I had two kick-ass venture firms pitch them in Washington. They came to Washington, D.C. to pitch my nonprofit board. And one of them was Excel, and the partner there was Teresa Gao. She's now at Accrue, managing director. But I wanted Teresa, and it was the woman on the board, the sole woman on the board, Christine Varney, who said, guys, she brought the deal. You didn't think that she would. Excel's a great firm. If that's what she wants, she should get that. And so that's who we went with. But it was very transformative and very important. TrustE has changed its name to TrustE. It's doing well. I still own a fair bit of it, but over the years, I've been able to sell some shares on the secondary market, and that's been good to me. And it was my do-over. This time I got the percentage of the company that I needed to get. And it's not the same household name as Match, obviously. But, and also it had impact. I mean, helping people understand privacy and protecting them and helping companies comply, all that's good stuff.
Absolutely. And so how then did you end up doing BabyQuip?
And so, life is strange, right? So I left TrustE full-time in 2012. I moved from Alameda, where I'd raised my sons, to San Francisco post-divorce, up on Potrero Hill, anybody who knows San Francisco. And at the time, that was about, 6 blocks away from Airbnb.
Yep.
But which at the time was a very early startup.
Right.
And by mid-2012, I did not buy the house with the idea that I'd be renting rooms to strangers in my house. But by mid-2012, I was doing just that. I didn't even tell people because I was afraid that I'd come off like one of these, English widows who had borders that you read in all those old novels, right? Who's down on her luck, In any case, I was like, I'm going to try this. I was curious.
Yeah, well, it's a smart way to invest and create revenue.
Yeah, how it would work out. But I had 2 bedrooms on the top floor of my house. And before you know it, I had, and remember I was close to Airbnb. So I would have a lot of Airbnb recruits and employees and so on come through. And I mean, I was making beds and cleaning toilets and, but I'm a marketer, so I kind of knew how to do it, figured it out. And I think at one point, my house was one of the top 5 income generating houses in San Francisco. I mean, kind of crazy. Anyway, that got me thinking about what are the businesses that are going to emerge from this way people are traveling, and what are the businesses that are going to emerge from this gig economy? Because now I was making good money. I did not have to find a full-time job. I was advising. I was on GE Capital's board. I am no longer. You should correct
Very
that.
good. Okay. Update that.
That's great. I could do things like that. And I was advising at Women's Startup Lab, which is like a pre-accelerator for women, which is something that wasn't around in the mid-90s, but by the mid to in the aughts, we started to see these emerge to try to address the issue. And there was a girl from Santa Fe, a woman from Santa Fe, who had started a baby gear rental business
Mm.
to serve traveling families. And she was doing good business in Santa Fe, and Santa Fe's not that big of a place. It is a destination, but
Mhm.
you know, it's not Anaheim or Orlando or Hawaii. And but she gave me the pitch. I said, you know, I should be your CEO, which was kind of, you know, cheeky, but it was a good idea. And by May of 2016, we started the company.
That's amazing. Well,
Yeah.
sometimes you just have to say it too, right? I think that's one of the things I'm hearing is you ask for it.
Yeah, you know, and did I do a lot of research? By the time May
Yeah.
came around, I
Yeah.
had.
Right.
Um, what I saw was that there was no national brand, nobody who was leaning into a lot of mom and pops, especially at big destinations. Not leaning into trust and safety.
Uh-huh.
I knew marketplaces, I knew how to build brands, I knew how to raise money. I thought it was a really good fit. Now, did I really survey the market of all the things I could do? You know, the thing is, Coco, once you're a CEO and once you do a startup, it's really hard. I was working with another company and a portfolio, I was a consultant there
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah, yeah.
believed in the mission and everything, but I wasn't going to be the CEO, you
Right.
know? Also, I didn't really know that much about finance
Right.
and, you know, and those kinds of models. But I knew I could figure this baby gear rental thing out. The other thing I loved about it is this whole gig economy was really focused on getting moms
Uh-huh.
on the platform to be our supply to rent the baby gear. And um, you know, they started to make good money. And I was happy for them because they could do this with their kids. And the money they were making made a real difference to their families. It still does. And so I was just thrilled with that aspect of it because, you know, in advising Women's Startup Lab, in working at Portfolio, I was very interested in trying to help women entrepreneurs be more successful. And it's still really, really tough. I mean, you know, I'm sure
Oh,
you know, the number hasn't budged much at all.
it is hard. It's so hard to be an entrepreneur, as you know. It's getting the plane to take off while you're trying to build it and go somewhere. It's no easy task. And what I love, I mean, you've been able to scale this baby pretty quickly too, and you're out in the world. And I just like I love part of what I believe is different about women and men, and maybe it's not true across the board, but like a lot of women are driven by purpose. Like we have to pay our bills, we have to take care of our children, certainly. We have to, pay our mortgages and do those things. But then
How
beyond that,
to embrace, you know, to a certain extent, we've got to embrace ambition and wanting to make a lot of money. Because
I
if we have more women with a lot of money, then this problem with women founders not getting funded is going to continue. So, you know, encouraging wealth creation, nothing to be ashamed about.
nothing to be ashamed about at all, right? And so like the more that we can lean into it and not be apologetic about it, and at this, like and at the same time our desires once we have the money. And I think part of it is to like, what would you do if you had more prosperity? What does prosperity mean to you? And when you talk about it, it's like, well, you're getting involved with this women's startup lab, and you're getting involved with things that matter to you. And then of course, if you're this business, when you started to tell me, when we were sitting in Cuba and we're chatting and over mojitos, and you're telling me about like this crew of women out in the world that are creating their own micro businesses, and I'm thinking about all the women that I know who are super bright and talented, who sort of slow down and sometimes even stop when they have kids, and they're trying to figure out how to do that mom thing and then reemerge again. And I thought of all like the possible ways that your business is creating opportunity and prosperity for women all over the place. And maybe they're not all women. Maybe you've got some men too.
We got some guys, we got some couples, we have some women who are in teams.
Yeah.
We've got some grandparents doing it with
Yeah.
the together. 90% plus are women, and they might start out with some of their own gear, but they are really building a business on our platform. They're reinvesting into inventory. They
Yes.
are doing marketing in their local communities. We teach them how to get a Google My Business page. We teach them how to do some social media marketing. So they're getting some good skills. The thing that just, I mean, there's so many things I love about it, but one of the things is we have a private community on Facebook
Uh-huh.
and very active. Now we have over 2,500 quality providers. That's what we call them. And they're the ones who own the baby gear, deliver it, pick it up, clean it, and so on. 2,500 all over the world, most of the United States, of course. And they share everything. They share photos of how they organize their garage, how they pack their car. They call it car Tetris, full of the baby gear. They do some bragging like, hey, I got this really great tip, and how that really made a difference to me, right? They'll talk about that. Or they'll talk about a difficult customer and get advice. And through all, we did this summer about 30,000 orders, and we still only have 2 full-time dedicated customer service people. Because
Wow.
these quality providers, they solve the problems for their customer.
I just feel
And
like, wow,
yeah,
win, 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 right?
some of them are doing, it's a full-time job and they even have workers.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so they're doing, and this is only in very, very large markets,
Right.
right?
Mhm, mhm.
Florida Panhandle, for example. But we've got, on average, they're bringing home $1,500, $2,000 a month. Sometimes they'll post, especially if they hit a milestone, like their 100th order or their 1,000th order or 3 years, something like that. They'll post into our private community what a difference BabyQuip has made to them. And just a few that always stick with me.
Uh-huh.
One is a gal showed a photo of her family at Disney World. Because of BabyQuip, she could take her own family to
Oh,
Disney World, right? That's
right.
great. Another one talked about how she was so into her career, unfortunately had a special needs child, had to dial it back, but needed something to do that
Yeah.
she could do with her child, and she could do BabyQuip. And she was really enjoying it. And then another one said how she left an abusive marriage and
Wow.
BabyQuip saved the day. So those things I find, very, very, very motivating. I also am motivated by the fact that families can have a better vacation and not have to
Totally, right?
go back here. I mean, a good family vacation, and to millennial parents, this is a priority. So I'm thrilled with that as well.
Well, and it reminds me of so you were on Shark Tank,
Yeah.
and one of the ways you illustrated, right, like the problem that your company solves, right? The schlepping,
Yes,
the
pack
being the mule.
a mule. That was, so I could say, you need a pack mule to carry all this gear. That was fun for me too, Coco, because one of the other exciting things about this business is my chief technology officer is my oldest son, Joe. And we've now worked together for 7 years. He joined the team with Carrie, the gal who I started with, startups are for everyone. And so he stepped in when she stepped away. And that's a unique thing. And we were on Shark Tank together. And that was so much more fun for me to be on Shark Tank with my son
Oh my
than,
gosh, yes.
right?
Was that terrifying to do that? I would have been terrified. So you
But
got on Shark Tank.
by the time you're on that stage, you have watched hundreds of Shark Tanks. You have worked with the producers, you have talked through, and I mean, I aggravated my son so much because I never got the 2 minutes right, the initial 2 minutes, right? And he was like, I can't believe you're messing up. Of course, once the camera was on, I was, I was all on. Now, a couple things about that I'll share. We did not get any money, but we were back and forth with Mr. Wonderful, so it was fun. And I had established myself as an experienced CEO, so it's fine, to turn down the deal.
Yeah.
The other thing though is it aired. Okay, so we filmed in 2019. It didn't air until March 6th, 2020. Now, think about
Oh,
right.
oh boy. Yes. So right as the pandemic is about to completely unfurl the world.
Exactly. I had a party in my house in San Francisco, probably 50 people there, but it was on a Friday night and you knew things were just going to crash. And sure enough, like you said, the next week everything crashed. It was still good for us.
Yeah.
It's good for credibility. It was certainly a lot of fun. It's a good story.
Yeah.
People like to know it.
Well, what did you do, Fran? What did you do in March of 2020 in that year? How did you pivot? How did you handle that?
Yeah, God,
No one was traveling. No one
I
needed,
had
right?
posed some money in at the beginning of 2020. I
Mhm.
had another investor who had committed to close their investment by March of 2020. I was worried that they wouldn't do it. They went ahead and did it.
God.
Okay. I cut back salaries. I still hired somebody I need to hire because I really need to hire them. We cut back marketing spend. We focused on building some things that we needed to do.
Mhm.
And I bought a baby gear cleaning business. So we could clean baby gear for local families. Remember, especially early to mid pandemic, clean was the thing.
Totally. So you
Sentiment.
just leaned right into the problem that was out in the market. You listened to your
No,
customer.
and that was important then. It's not a big part of the business right now,
Mhm.
but I think it sent a message to our community of quality providers that we were dedicated to their success and want to help them. And by February of 2021, we started to see big upticks in the business, particularly in Florida at first.
Uh-huh.
And then, 2021 turned out to be double 2019 and quadruple 2020, of course, something like that. 2022 was really high as well, doubled again. 2023 last year and this year, a little bit slower,
Mhm.
revenge
Mhm.
travel is over,
Mhm.
but we're doing really well. Probably need to do that A round early next year.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think it's going to be exciting. We'll have some exciting things to announce at that point.
I'm curious when you think about customer acquisition, do you think about more bringing in your quality providers, your ambassadors, or do you think about marketing directly to direct to consumer? What is your thought process around?
Most of our marketing is direct to consumer.
Uh-huh.
Um, we're a problem-solving brand. So from the very beginning, the most efficient has been, Google AdWords.
Mm-hmm.
When we changed our name from Baby Heirs, like Baby Concierge, to BabyQuip, we start to invest more into SEO, search engine optimization.
Uh-huh.
We do a lot of social media. We do a lot of influencer marketing. I can tell you, I didn't expect influencer marketing to be such a big deal, but it's completely a big deal. To acquire the quality providers, we have referrals. A lot of them were customers first and said to
Mhm.
themselves, I could do this too. So we definitely try to promote that. Um, I would say in the last year or so, we've been very focused on unit economics, making sure that we're making money with every order and that we have a long-term value to cost of acquisition that's growing.
Mhm.
And so LTV to CAC is one of our most important KPIs. And we're making progress on everything that we need to do. I have a really good team. As you know, I lost my dad
Yeah.
earlier this year, and then just a few months after I lost my stepmother, you know, and I had to step away in my dad's last, weeks and through all that, and my team just really stepped up, and that was fantastic
Mhm.
and really made a difference.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So if you could, like, when you look back and you think about where you were, you know, during during the match journey, for example, you talked about it a little bit, but maybe allude a little more. Like, what are some things that you now sort of know and believe, the wisdom that you've gathered over all these years of experience and trials and tribulations? Like, what are some of the things that you look back and wish you'd known earlier?
I wish I had had more confidence
Yeah.
and a little bit more swagger, you know?
Mhm.
I mean, I had built one of the leading brands of the internet. Yeah, when I looked for jobs, they weren't coming easy. And I have to say, had I been a guy, you know, I think that confidence and swagger, but also it would have been different, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I,
No, I,
I, I try not to be angry about it anymore, but it's funny. This is a funny story. My son Joe made a playlist called sort of Mom's 90s songs, okay? Which was very funny because he would have been a little boy. So he put this playlist probably of songs that he was hearing that I was
he
playing.
was when he was growing
Oh,
up. Yeah.
they're angry 90s women's songs. Talk about Alanis Morissette,
I
you
was
know?
gonna say it had to have been Alanis.
I was playing that for a friend of mine. He goes, "Oh man, you were pissed, you know?" And I
Yeah.
was pissed, you
Yeah.
know, and I'm not pissed now. I mean, I've done well enough and in any absolute way, I've had really an interesting and exciting and successful career. Part of me thinks I should have been a bigger badass.
Yeah. Well, and you are now. You're a
Yeah,
pretty big badass now.
I'm very motivated,
Yeah.
in part with BabyQuip to
Yeah.
make it a big success, in part to just sort of, you know, one of the early investors in TrustE kind of poo-pooed us because we had been a nonprofit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I didn't run it like a nonprofit,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
no. I know now many of the people I hired are still there and still succeeding.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I do feel like I want a little vindication. I want
Yeah.
the win.
You want the win.
I
And
want the win.
that's good, right? I feel like if you have that in your blood, you're destined to be a founder for better or worse, right?
No, I want the win, and I think we're gonna get it.
Mhm. Absolutely. I mean, this business that you're building, BabyQuip, is extraordinary. For all of our listeners, if you haven't checked it out, go to BabyQuip, QUIP.com, and you will find it. And certainly if you have children or you have grandchildren or you're an aunt or uncle and someone's traveling to your house or you're traveling with your children, this is the way to go. Like whether you need a stroller or you need a pack and play or you need um, toys, right? Children are coming and you need some toys and so forth. And so you don't have to schlep it across the country on the airplane. You can just get it very nice and easily through BabyQuip. Um, what would be your final words of wisdom for women founders who are building high impact, high growth companies and long to have that company with substance and scale?
So many things. Again, try to have that confidence in the swagger. You do know what you're doing. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Tactically, I often give the advice, make sure in your pitch deck that you put your qualifications up front, because most of the men on the other side of the table will mostly be men. They're going to wonder who you are and why you could speak with authority. So establish that early.
Mhm.
Don't get overwhelmed. Try and take care of yourself.
Mhm.
I mean, you really do not have to work this 100 hours a week. I mean, that's a recipe for burnout and not being your best self.
That's absolutely right. Right. Find people that can be your support system, people to ask questions, right? And get the help you need so that you're not having to do it all alone, whether it's expertise or borrowing people's swagger or, getting funding. And I know we didn't even dive into that part of it, but I know that's something you've been successful doing. And it's
Still hard.
very hard. Oh, Fran, it's always a pleasure. And
So
go ahead.
that's what I was going to say. So fun.
Yeah, it's so fun. So nice to be together. And I'm gonna have to make myself a little trip down to New Mexico. You'll have to let me know when you're up in New York, or we'll have to go to Cuba or somewhere else again very soon.
That sounds great. Nice to see you.
It's so nice to see you. Thank you all for joining the Wisdom of Women show. Thank you for illuminating the path, Fran, to unlocking opportunities for growth and prosperity for women-led enterprises. We value your wisdom and experience. The world is made better by women-led business. Let's go make the world a better place. Thank you.
Is your business ready to accelerate? Take the Business Acceleration Readiness Assessment today and find out now at www.aforceforgood.biz/quiz. Take the 5-minute assessment and you will receive an instant response on the 4 essential areas of alignment needed for business growth. You will also receive 4 free tools specific to your situation to help you and your team accelerate success right away. Go to www.aforceforgood.biz/quiz and find out what you can do to accelerate, impact, scale, and profit today.